Thank you for being here. Thank you for attending our first program of 2025. Yes, starting it off, very exciting program. The New York Book Forum is a 501(c) nonprofit whose mission is to build bridges between the publishing world and the public, which includes booksellers, authors, print providers, and book consumers. If you don't know who I am, I'm Irene Chan. I'm program chair of the New York Book Forum. We are very grateful to be able to present our program to you tonight. As part of our mission, we present a different program every third Wednesday of the month, almost every month throughout the year, alternating between in-person and virtual events. It's only through collective group effort that we're able to present these programs, a collective effort between the committees and the members of the New York Book Forum, and also a collective effort with everyone here with us tonight. We're a community of book lovers, whether you love reading them, editing them, selling them, or making them, and designing them. We're all here tonight because we're in some way connected to books and to each other. As a community, we're better. We want to thank Westchester Publishing Services for sponsoring this event with us tonight. Tyler Carey, hi Tyler. Thank you for helping us make programs like this possible. So today, our January program is President's Night, and tonight we have with us Dave McCree, CEO of Lakeside Book Company. Dave began his career in book manufacturing in 1989.
Thanks a lot.
You have to know your experience. He began his career at Donnelley in 1989, in case you didn't know. Throughout the years, RRD has evolved and restructured into multiple divisions. In 2012, Dave was promoted to president of the LSC Communications Book business, and in 2020, LSC Communications was purchased by Atlas Holdings and rebranded as Lakeside Book Company, naming Dave as a CEO to lead the company, who's been there since 1989. Tonight, we will be discussing deluxe editions, one of the hottest trends in book publishing today, as well as other modern strategies and new technology. If you've been to a bookstore in the last year, there's a good chance you saw a whole section dedicated to deluxe editions. So I'm very excited to talk with you about that, Dave, on this really exciting new development in book publishing. Thank you for joining us here today. So glad that you were able to come here with all your extensive experience. You've been doing this since 1989.
Seems like yesterday.
Time has flown. That means you have enjoyed this industry, which is great. So, tell us, Lakeside Book Industry has a long history of book printing. Your facilities are extensive, and you have a whole array of machinery, which means Lakeside can print just about any format and special effects under the sun. So custom editions are special editions that have become the hottest thing, and it's not new particularly, but it has definitely taken off in the last few years. Why do you think, can you tell us what are your thoughts? Why is that happening? Why is that taken off so much recently?
Yeah, I think there's a number of reasons, and certainly it's exciting. All of us love books, right? That's why we're in this industry, for whatever part of the industry we play in. And I think for many years, we've been working to highlight books. I think the latest trends, certainly TikTok and these other social media platforms have created the ability to highlight these products and make them visible. I think for a lot of years we went through the world where maybe our world still is dominated by our frenemy Amazon. The good folks, bad folks. But when you go to Amazon to shop for a book, you don't necessarily get that tactile feel. All of a sudden, Book Talk started, and then people, I think more and more, the independent bookstores growing, now Barnes & Noble growing, books are going in, and highlighting the books has always been important. But now with the edge staining and decorating, I think it's just taken it to the next level. Not a new level, but the next level of books.
Oh yeah, edge staining is the hottest thing. I keep calling it the hottest thing this last decade. Isn't it the hottest effect we've seen this decade? It's certainly what everyone wants. So can you tell us what percentage of your print sales would you say are special or deluxe editions today?
I guess the answer to that question is a little challenging. It's what do you consider a deluxe edition? There's lots of discussion today about deluxe edition, and I think a lot of it is since the latest push towards this edge staining. But in my mind, deluxe editions, we brought a sample book I can talk a little bit about later, but it could be die cutting on the cover, it could be foils, it could be set packing, it could be slip cases, it could be the case has a special stamping on it. All that in my mind is special editions. And we've been doing that for a long time. So if I look at the Phoenix business, I was talking to one of the folks down there the other day, and they said there's 30% of the components that come out of Phoenix that don't have some type of special effect. So I would say a huge amount of our books are special effects. It just depends how you define what a special effect might be.
Yeah, no, for sure. Lots of different ways to do special effects. Edge staining is definitely the topic of the day, but that doesn't mean it's the only way to make a special deluxe edition. Speaking about Phoenix and their work doing covers, like one of the interesting things about deluxe editions is the variety in covers. And I think today, with deluxe editions, designers are more and more keen on making something really pop. Not just with edge staining, but also with your covers. Like, when I look for my favorite edition of a book, it's, I like having the variety of options to pick from, because you can pick a classic cover, like an old classic cover, or like a more modern one with a more cartoon or animated design. And so this puts more demand on designers to design more covers for one single book. And some of the nicest cover designs I've ever seen are a collaboration between the printer, the vendor, and the designer. So as a vendor that provides a lot of effects, what are some questions that publishers and customers aren't asking their vendor, but you wish they would when it comes to design or production or manufacturing?
Yeah, the biggest thing that I think is helpful in that sense is having the conversation. Often, I think, as a manufacturer or as the printer, we're further and further down the line, and it comes time to say, okay, give me a quote on X number of units, and here's the trim size, here's the specs of the book, and send me a quote, which is great, and that's a huge part of the business. But what's exciting, especially in today's environment, is the opportunity to do things that are different. We've been working for probably 2 years now since COVID. Sounds like it was a long time ago, which is great news. But to get people back to the manufacturing facilities, and I know a number of the folks in the industry, not just Lakeside, are doing that. And if we can get designers, everyone through the production process back into the facilities, or like our folks from Phoenix, call them into your publishing houses early in the process, there's a lot of different things that we can do. And I think the way to understand what the capabilities of today's equipment are is to have those conversations face to face and to see. We have a facility, we have a whole area of our Crawfordsville, Indiana plant that is basically a sample room of all the different types of products we've done. If you go to the Phoenix Color facility, similarly, again, I know a number of other printers and component shops in the industry are the same way. But that would be my biggest suggestion, is to, we don't know the questions to ask and not to ask, but if you see something you say, or maybe it's in a bookstore, then you bring it back and hand it to your sales rep and say, we like that, can you do that, or how do you do that, or what's the step of that process? And just having those conversations.
Yeah, that collaborative process, I work in production, or we call it manufacturing, and that collaborative process is that's how we usually create the most beautiful covers. And having a vendor come in to show samples is a great way, I've found, for designers to see different options and not just see what other people are doing, but if you're looking for a specific spec, I think that has been really valuable with that relationship that publishers have with vendors, where they come in and they show, here are a bunch of things that we've done with this spec, which is what they're looking for, and it gets really specific, and it's really specific guidance, and that's been one of the really valuable things that I've found with having a good relationship with a vendor.
Yeah, it creates also the opportunity for folks to work together, and very appropriately, always, I'm sure your sales rep would say, maybe that's not a good idea.
Yeah, we don't mind when they say that. We don't mind at all. If it looks terrible, please tell us. If it's not a good spec, we want to know. It's not a bad conversation to have. And so, okay. I work in production, so I do a lot of scheduling. Scheduling is half my life. So when I hear the words deluxe edition or special edition, I love seeing them. But it also when I hear that at work, that usually means this is going to be a rush. It usually means there's longer lead times correlated with deluxe editions, especially if you're doing an edge print, which is what everyone wants to do today. And this is not a fast process. It takes a long time. So the minute I hear this, I think, okay, it's probably going to be a rush. And my worst nightmare is we make a rush edition, and it just doesn't look as good as we want it to because we didn't have the time to produce it. When you rush things, things happen. And part of doing this is you need to get so much information. You need to get 4 million different quotes, because you want to know, well, I want to do it with foil, but what if I did it with a metallic PMS? Or what if I did it print over stock, like print over middle-eye stock? There's just so many things that you have to cost and estimate, and then a bunch of schedules too, because then we have to talk about, what if I publish this in September versus what if I publish this in November? And it's just a lot of information that needs to happen. So basically, my question is, what does Lakeside do to decrease the amount of time it takes for a customer to get the information they need? Because that is the first thing, is that we need a lot of information quickly.
Yeah, I'm not going to avoid your question. I'm not a politician, I'm a CEO. But I am going to stay away from the pricing side of it. It's up to our customers to work with their different vendors, and if you need 20 different quotes and 20 different styles, that's going to take time, there's no question about it. But I think more important on the timing is, again, it's those early discussions. To me, we should be able to work together to plan the timing on your first print. So when you hear deluxe edition, yeah, it does send sort of bells and whistles, and that's great. You've been around long enough to get that. It's going to take longer to produce. More importantly is, if what we all hope for is that book takes off and you need an extra 10,000, 20,000, hopefully 100,000 copies of that book, what does that mean? And if your book is a 2.5-inch thick book with ribbons or edge staining, it's not going to happen quickly. It's just impossible. So that's a choice that in the discussion should be having up front in the planning of a book, that if you, the special effects, it's tough enough to plan that initial printing, but everyone in the publishing house, and I know that's not actually reality, should understand, if it takes off, what it's going to take to quickly reproduce that title. And that's where we see the most stress, coming through the system. Most of these processes are offline operations or semi-offline operations, and it just takes more time in manufacturing. Now, we're doing a lot of work around the industry to ensure that the capabilities for all these effects are resident here in the US. So we're doing everything we can to make sure we can avoid overseas manufacturing where you're adding in the freight time. But still, in the vast majority of these cases, you are looking at offline operations, and that's going to take longer to produce. So it's those reprints where it gets tough, and you just have to plan ahead for it.
So to talking about edge print, like that takes a long time. And if I had a project and I was doing a reprint with an edge print, and we need that reprint quickly, that's not something I'm going to expect that can happen very quickly. And I know more and more vendors are buying more equipment to meet the demand for this, because there's a ton of demand for edge print in the market, and it feels like it's a race for vendors to purchase more and more of this equipment. And as I understand it, Lakeside has equipment for this. And do you feel that there is, with this race for all vendors, so many vendors to buy this equipment, do you think this is going to lead to an overabundance of edge print capacity at some point?
Yes.
How long do you think that'll take?
I think it's a long way out. You know, the reality of it is the process of edge printing, and everyone knows, you've seen this type of thing, you know, around two sides or one side, is not that much longer of a process than many other special effects on the jackets or on the case sides, or whether you're slipcasing it. The process of actually printing along the edges of the book, now that we're getting the right manufacturing equipment, is not the problem. It's that the equipment that it's happening on is scheduled out for 2 or 3 months, so it's getting back onto the equipment is the issue with the timing. And there's more equipment coming online, and I think that it should still be a special effect that is. You're making a very conscious thought to put this on your book. It's not going to happen on 80% of your books. I mean, we produce hundreds of millions of books at Lakeside Book every year, and it's a couple % of our books are done with edge printing. And so if that doubles, if that triples, if that quadruples, it's going to be 5% of the books have edge printing on it, and it's millions of books, but it's not going to be hundreds of millions of books. That's just not the reality. So it's just, I think, thoughtful planning, and I think as more equipment comes on across the industry, I think the supply-demand curve will balance out. To be more of a special effect that will be available, just like if you were going to put a ribbon on a book, or just like if you were going to slipcase a book or set back a book. It'll be something that you'll be able to plan for ahead of time and have more ability to produce it. But right now, it's really tough.
With the new edge print machines, they print beautiful, beautiful edges. Like, what is it? This one? I'm showing the right side. Yeah, like this one. I mean, this kind of edge is what a lot of designers are doing today. But printing or staining on the edges has been around for forever. People have been doing that publishers have been doing that forever. And that's kind of, it seems like that's falling out of favor. So, do you feel that that's falling to the wayside, where staining a solid edge is kind of falling out of popularity, and most of what you're doing is decorations like this on the edge?
I think it's the new shiny object. I'm a believer that it certainly looks neat, and it drives a consumer to pick up a book and take a look at it. And that's great, right? That's the whole idea. That's why we're having the special effects on the jackets and covers, and we've been doing that as an industry for a long time. I think the driver of the industry is still going to be the content. We're delivering the product, and it looks different. But if Rebecca Yaros, if you saw the article in the New York Times, there's millions of books in this romantasy category, and every publisher in here, they're doing these books. If people read that book and it's a really good book, they're going to want to read volume 2. And if there's not available with an edge stain on that book, they're going to buy book 2 anyway, and they might come back to want to get a collector's edition. So I think the driver of the excitement is the content, And right now, this is sort of the shiny object. So I think it's a couple of years. I would say 2 years from now, it'll start to be more of a norm of one of many effects that you can choose from. It's that you want to be on that early wave of having your book or this type of thing. I should also say it's expensive, and I know there's sort of some interesting discussions we get into with our customer base, and they know capacity is scarce across the industry. They know it takes a long time to do it, it's different, and they want it to be less expensive. And we're spending millions of dollars on equipment, and we're trying to rush equipment in and get it done, and everyone squeeze on, and sort of that basic supply and demand curve right now says, yes, it's expensive to do.
I think that the whole scheduling aspect of it, it's no secret that edge print takes a long time. And for publishers, when my editorial team or my design team is asking for this effect, they're not surprised anymore when I tell them we have to check, we have to see where the capacity is. And I think for these teams, for the publishers thinking long-term, they're thinking, okay, this capacity is scarce, maybe we can't rely on this effect too much. So while everyone seems to want it today, I think the scarcity of it today also makes them think we have to pivot at some point. Like, we can't all depend on edge print. Also, there are lots of, like you said, there's lots of other things in the market besides edge print. Not that I don't love the effect and the way that it looks, but the scarcity of it, that's going to drive what publishers do at some point, unless there's too much capacity in the market.
Right, and as I said, eventually that, I'm not sure it'll be too much, but it will level out, and it won't be sold out for the next X number of months, which is the current situation. But then it's sitting down and having those creative conversations with the sales organization from Lakeside or from your supplier, hopefully Lakeside, sorry. But what other effects out there? What are you trying to accomplish, and what are the possibilities that you can do out there to get the product out? And it might be save the edge printing for next time, or for a reprint, or for something down the road.
But have you seen that you really like, that's not edge printing? Or with edge printing?
I think anytime I walk in a bookstore, I still, someone made, I think I'm going to credit Michael with this. It's the dust jacket, and it can have the foil embossing. I think sort of back, maybe that's old school now, but that's what sells the book when you walk through the shelves. That's probably because I'm not reading a lot of the romanticy products, but if I'm looking for whether it's a biography or some type of fiction or nonfiction, the jacket that draws me in, and that's really what edge staining is about. I think that the comment I was going to credit you with is it's been a long time since dust jackets were actually used to keep dust off your book. Those dust jackets are there as a sales piece, and I think if you use the effects that are available today from folks like Phoenix, that can be a pretty good substitute for the edge staining. It's still going to draw readers to your products.
So romanticy has definitely led the charge on deluxe editions in recent years. Have you seen other categories picking up on deluxe editions outside of romanticy?
Yeah, I think we've seen a tremendous amount of product that series work, slip casing, set packing. There's more and more of that, which tells me there's a demand out there in the marketplace for something that's different. If it's a set of 3 books, whether it's a series of the same author or a mix of books. So our business, we do a lot of that packaging work, and that's picked up fairly significantly in the last couple of years. So that's a trend. That's, I think, genre is not as specific in that. It draws I'm assuming it draws the consumer to a table in the front of the independent bookstore or in the Barnes & Noble.
A slipcase of edge printing is my nightmare. Only because we produce this, and if you're doing a slipcase, you're doing a box set, so there's multiple books in it, and now you're not just talking about edge printing one book, you're talking about edge printing 4 of them, or 7, and 30,000 times 4 books, that capacity just gets eaten up immediately.
And I get it, but what's great, isn't it, is that that's the nightmare, but at the end of the day, I think what's happening is the book industry is growing. Again, I've been, I'm not sure you mentioned it, but I've been in this business since 1989.
Right, 1989.
Always in books, and ever since I started, my family and my friends, sort of ask, "Oh, how's the book business? Must be dying, right? Wow, you're still doing that." And amazingly, the book business is growing. It grew last year. If you look at Circana, if you look at any of the demographic information, and now we're seeing young people. Maybe it's the edge printing that are drawing them in. It's the tactile feel of a book, a printed book, that's getting them excited about the product set. It's the getting, I forget the guy's name, the Philadelphia Eagles guy who's in the middle of the playoff game and he's on the bench reading a book and they catch him. And that book is now #1 on Amazon. The book industry is growing and people like the stories and like the business, and so special editions I think are helping to drive that because it's getting a lot of news, whether it's TikTok or whether it's the Today Show or whether it's the evening, whatever you're watching, you're seeing these books, but it's saying, oh yeah, I haven't read a book in a while, and I think people are buying books in general, and I think it's exciting.
I think there's a big social media aspect to it. I think people like to be photographed with a book because if you're reading your book on your phone, no one else knows what you're reading, and it's people are curious, especially if you're in social media.
They don't think you're reading a book if you're looking at your phone.
Yeah, they just think you're looking at something interesting. And if you're reading romantasy, people want to know what kind of smut other people are reading. That's the thing. But also. Bookstores, I think people are definitely going back to bookstores, and this, I never buy books from Amazon, I'm kidding, I have, but I have friends who buy books from Amazon, and the quality is horrible. Not the quality of the printing necessarily, but the quality of the way it was handled, but part of people going back to bookstores, you expect to see quality books in a bookstore. You expect to see something where you pick it up and you feel, I would definitely pay, X amount of dollars for this. You definitely don't get that when you're looking at things online. But also with the social media aspect of it, with people displaying what they're reading, they want it to look special, especially if you're a book talker. You don't want to be someone who's on Book Talk displaying the same book that everyone else is showing, even if everyone's reading that book. So quality is huge. My nightmare is we produce a book and then someone goes to social media and they do a presentation video and there's a print error on it. I mean, that is my personal nightmare. And so quality, I think, tends to be a cultural aspect at print vendors. It's created not just in the skill of any one particular operator or operators, but it's a whole company, it's a whole culture that's built. So what are some things at Lakeside that cultivates that culture?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's absolutely critical to our business. We run our business on 5 pillars, safety being #1. Right? We're a manufacturing business. If we're making books, we're running heavy machinery, and every injury in one of our facilities is someone not going home the same way they came to work. And so that's #1 every day. If you talk to someone from Lakeside, if they aren't talking about safety, you should probably ask them to talk about it. But other pillars, we're a manufacturing operation, so continuous improvement. How do we get better every day at what we're doing? But right in with that is customer satisfaction. And customer satisfaction has a lot of tenets, but the #1 piece is the quality of the product. We know that if we're shipping out a book and it's not up to the spec that our customers demand, amazingly, 99.9% of the bad books end up with a consumer on a TV show. Somehow they all end up there. Your worst nightmare.
Yes.
Or a TikToker. But that ability to continually drive the quality of our product and the defect rate to a lower and lower rate is critical to what we do. And that's done through any number of steps, but we hope we continually get better at it. And then the second part of it is the other thing is we are a manufacturing business that has a lot of steps going through the process. And yes, there's a lot of human intervention, and yes, errors can happen. And then the question is, how quickly can you recover from those errors? Now, I get it, if you're on social media and someone's talking about the book, it's pretty hard to recover momentarily, but I think the expectation should be that the customer service level and the reaction time goes up even faster if there's a quality problem.
Is there a lot of automation involved in maintaining quality?
There is, and I think that's one of the ways we're seeing AI play in and into the manufacturing world. You know, we typically see manufacturing defects or equipment go down on a maintenance standpoint, and we do processes called, preventive maintenance. So you take a piece of machinery and every 6 weeks the press stops down. You're doing lubrication, you're checking all the systems on the press to make sure that everything's good, and then you're starting the press back up. What we're doing now is saying, wait a minute, we've been around for a long time. As most presses are not new typically. We have data on how those presses run. We have data on when those presses run down. We should be able to do predictive maintenance. So we're doing predictive maintenance now. We're putting sensors in on each motor for vibration analysis, and then getting data back, and then we're analyzing that data. So even though we're an old line printing industry, and a lot of our, if we have a SIG that the pagination is wrong, someone hung a plate wrong, that's human error. But if we have many of the errors that happen on press or in our manufacturing process, we're installing and using technology to be able to predict those errors a lot earlier in the process.
Is Lakeside using AI to do some of that predictive analysis?
Early days. I mean, we're still trying to figure out, exactly how to use AI and what's the best way to use it. But the idea of, I would call it data analysis. We're crunching a lot more data and using tools to do that differently to understand what's happening in the process.
I mean, AI is, a lot of publishers are concerned about the use of AI in content. So you can't feed it any content. You can only use it for data analysis. But even depending on the kind of data you're feeding into it, you can't use it for that either. And then we use an open AI system, so it feeds out into the internet. And I think that's one of the big reasons why publishers are concerned about AI, because it feeds out into the internet. You can't have your content going out into the internet, into an AI engine.
Right.
Is Lakeside using an open system?
Yeah, we're not, I wouldn't say we're using, I would call it more machine learning, which is an early phase of AI. So understanding the data and understanding what's happening in our equipment, and then using more powerful models to crunch that data and understand where we are. So it's not necessarily an open AI system, but it's more of a closed system.
Can you have AI do scheduling so we know immediately when we can print something tomorrow?
Yes and no. I mean, again, that's machine learning. We have a number of projects going on within our organization that we're understanding more. If we can understand when a machine is going to break down, if we can understand if you put this type of work, if you put all 9-inch work, if you put all 45-pound paper, if you put all one color work versus 2 color work, if you sequence work this way, we can do a much better job of predicting the volume of product we're going to get out of a certain machine, which then we can do a better job of scheduling and planning and communicating back to our customers of what it's going to take them. So it's happening. It's happening slowly. AI is, I don't get it. It's a new word. I don't exactly understand how it's going to impact our business yet, but I know it's going to impact our business, and we're sort of learning as we go. But we're not bringing data in and out in open channels to our business yet. We're more using a closed system to understand our data, but it will help the business be more predictive, no doubt about it.
And it'll drive quality, I hope.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, it's disappointing. You know, you talked about product that you occasionally get that's not up to snuff as a print job. I think I've seen a couple of articles on it, and there is this mindset in some forums that if I want a book really fast and I order it online and get that book, then I don't care about quality. And there are any number of, look on social media, people that are getting a book and it looks like crap. And I would offer that in the vast majority of the times that you see that product was not printed by any manufacturer that any of you know or deal with. It's someone that's quickly trying to produce a book of 1 or a book of 5 and trying to get it out quick and stick it in a pouch and get it out. And I think people get that book, and even though they got that content quickly, I think they're disappointed. Because that book it's now meaningful. I ordered it because I want the book, but I don't want something that's, paginations are off, or that's bouncing heads, or the covers are just a plain white cover with black print on it. That's not what they're looking for. So I think there's some disappointment out there, and I think people will trend away from that over time.
Yeah, and it is a little disorienting to read a book that you're really excited to get into, and it's printed poorly. It doesn't feel good in your hand while you're reading it. I do think that takes away from the experience if you're trying. I mean, for me, if I'm trying to get into a book and that book just doesn't feel, it feels flimsy, feels chintzy.
But there's one really positive side to that, is I find it virtually impossible to throw a book out, and that's why I'm not allowed to bring them home anymore, because they come in and they just keep stacking up. But those books I can throw out.
Oh yeah, you can give them away. All right, you wouldn't give away a deluxe edition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, as a gift you would, but I would not leave. I have a habit, when I finish a book, I leave it on a park bench. But if I have a deluxe edition, I'm not leaving that book on a park bench. I probably bought that book for myself. So, do you think deluxe editions are a trend? Is it a fad?
I don't think so. I think there'll be something, I don't know what else we can do to books, but we could have said that 5 years ago. But we keep finding something else to make that product more special. So I think deluxe editions will morph and will change, but I don't think it'll go away. I think there's always a book. It could be a leather cover. Yeah, there you go. That's a huge, right, look historically at our book. It could be a ribbon in the book. It could be a decorated edge. It could be a signed edition. Maybe it's just because it's a signed edition. But it makes that book special that you want to put that on your bookshelf and you want people to ask about it. You want to say that I got, and there's usually a reason. You gave it as a gift or you got it as a gift. So I think deluxe editions will continue to morph and change, and we'll figure out some other way to produce them to make that book special, that's what we're here to do, right? It's the content that gets us into a story, but it's also then, I love this book.
I think QR codes on books is getting really popular lately, but that doesn't necessarily make it deluxe.
Yeah. We did that a couple of years ago, more on the education space. We had a whole program where we were putting QR codes on books to track back where the book was manufactured to ensure that it wasn't a pirated book, which was really interesting because there were a lot of pirated books coming back in, but the cost and the process of that, maybe it's something we should go back and look at.
It's really interesting. Also, with the deluxe edition, it's almost definitely not pirated. No one pirating is spending that amount of time making, I don't think so.
maybe you're onto something here. Maybe there'd be some type of QR code or something on a book that would, to the consumer, that this is, again, it's different. This is tagged in some way that this is a special edition. So there you go. Mark that down.
Yes, you heard it here first.
Something else that'll take a little longer to produce.
So yeah, so the trend of deluxe editions not going anywhere.
I really don't think so. I think it's how you define a deluxe edition will change, but not the fact that we will have special books.
Excellent answer. Yeah, edge print is so edge print. You think on the way out at some point, won't be here.
Yeah, and I don't think it's on the way out, but I think the excitement about it, again, give it 2 years, I think it'll still be happening. I think it won't go away, but I think the desire for it, the supply and demand curve will level out a little bit, and there won't be the rush to be the one book with. But I think there'll be spot needs for that, and there'll be equipment here that will, when you have a reprint, when you have a need, your supplier base will be able to produce that, and I think that's great.
Yeah.
I mean, that's our job as manufacturers, and I'll take it a little bit. I'll use, for my editorial. It's an interesting time now. I'll try to say this nicely. I think during the COVID supply chain crunch, most of you have to remember that it was a total nightmare. Couldn't get books, and so when you could get books, everyone ordered tons of them. Warehouses filled up. The supply chain was just a mess for a couple years, and the reaction to that was U.S. manufacturers across the board adding capacity. There were presses added, there's binders added, there's equipment added all over the industry, and I think right now there's an excess of capacity in the industry. Because when a lot of that happened, it was the assumption that all the work was coming back to the United States. And it did briefly, and I would say over the past 12 to 18 to 24 months, a lot of work has moved back overseas. I think it's possible, if not probable, starting Monday, that there'll be more of an incentive to move work back here to U.S. manufacturing. And I think, not in every case, but I think there's excess capacity in the marketplace to absorb that demand, and I look forward to that. And no, it's not an opportunity for U.S. manufacturers to drive margins. I think it's an opportunity for U.S. manufacturers to fill capacity, and if we can fill capacity, I think that's good in a lot of different ways.
So your outlook for the domestic market in 2025 sounds positive. Yes,
not necessarily because of that. I think that certainly might influence, but I think our outlook when we look at Circana data, when I spend time with other folks in the industry, whether it's CEOs from publishing companies, whether it's other folks in the manufacturing space, people feel like the book space is a good place to be, and we see the business growing at low single digits. And if you look at the data, the total units are up. And that's great. And what's even more surprising to people, these people that say, how's the book business? Is I tell them not only we're talking about the trade business and edge decorating, but our education business. Not higher education, but the K through 12 business is up. We're going to do more physical books in the K through 12 business going forward in 2025 than 2024. So the book business on multiple fronts is strong, and it's great. It's exciting.
That is very exciting, very good news for locals.
I think COVID taught us a lot in the education world that there is a place for learning online, and the content relevance and the ability for our educators to switch quickly is fabulous. But there's also something, think about reading a trade book, and if you remember exactly where you were in the story and what page it was on, how far into it, your memory operates differently. There's lots of studies out there, and I think our educators in the K through 12 world have realized that, and they have also realized that it's not print or digital, it's print and digital. So E is not going away, but print is here to be part of the business for a long time.
Yeah, there's a lot of studies about, even if you're learning on an app, you need something, you need material to go along with it. Otherwise, that learning doesn't necessarily stick
Yeah.
Very well. Thank you, Dave, for any other outlooks on the rest of 2025. Do you think it's gonna? Is it better than 20? Will it be better than 2024?
Yeah, I think it will be. I'm a generally a glass half full guy. I came rather excited to come here tonight and see a room full of people. Now, as I said to someone, I don't know if that's because I'm excited about the book business or that's because whenever I walk through the streets of New York, I feel like I'm smoking weed and walking down the street. I don't really walk anymore. But yeah, I mean, I feel great about the book industry. I've been excited about this industry for a long time, and
since 1989.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. Good. So I think 24 will be a good year for the book business. I think we'll produce more books, and I think there'll be exciting things happening. And when I speak to folks, I think the whole concept of whether it's book talk or whether it's social media, whether it's edge printing, what it's doing is it's bringing a new demographic of young people into the book business, and they're out buying for whatever reason. It's individual for each person. They're buying books, and that's great because I think then they'll fall in love with the content, which I think is that's the draw. And that's what will bring people back.
And we have question. We have 15 minutes for questions from the audience.
I was wondering if you think that the proposed ban on TikTok coming in the next few days will have any effect on how consumers decide to purchase books, or with deluxe editions like Edge Staining, because we saw it blow up on TikTok, if you think that will have any effect on the market, or if you think it will just feed into other social medias, or because it kind of sounded like part of why people want these editions is because to have people see them read it. So with this large social media app basically gone, do you think that there will be any effect on the market?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think short term, yes. But I don't think TikTok will turn off, right? It's going to take a while for them not to be able to do the upgrades, and I think those who spend their life and have made it their business to be on TikTok, I think they'll fairly quickly. These are creative people that will find another avenue to do something similar or something a little bit differently. So could we see a slight effect? Yes, but I don't think it'll be long lasting. I think there's really smart people out there, and I wish I was that creative, but they'll find a way to get that social media following through another channel. So I think it'll shift it, which is why I think those folks are so scared, because I think if it goes away, something else will pop up and TikTok will no longer be as valuable.
I want to thank you. It's been fascinating. When we see people interviewed on Zoom, so often in the background there's a bookshelf. And there's an element of status to that. And so my question is, you've emphasized content, but in addition to that, where does the demand of the furnishing side of deluxe book enter?
From a leather man. There's certainly a market for furniture. People find it shocking. We still produced encyclopedias in our facilities. And it's for the furniture market, folks that want to have encyclopedias or law books. And when you're looking to go research cases, you're not pulling off the shelf the law book, you're going online. But if you're in your law office, you've got those books behind you. And so, again, I don't think that'll stop. I think folks still want to use that market. Now, what drives me crazy is one of the trends in furnishings where it's stylish to turn all the books around, but maybe that'll drive the itch. And now you won't see all the white books, and it'll be, maybe it'll be design stages. But I think, that furniture market's not going away. It's not huge, but it's solid.
Hello. I'm a fantasy girl and a YA girl, but I read nonfiction as well, and self-help, spirituality, all of that. And I've noticed that there's so much, of course, everybody wants the fantasy pretty covers. But do you ever talk to publishers about printing better covers for nonfiction Because when I walk into the section, it's like self-help is staring at you, and it's almost like I don't want to be seen with these books, even though they are valuable, even educational books, they're valuable, but they're not, it's not like I want to be judged being seen with them, but I want prettier covers. I want prettier covers and I want edges, and I've noticed that there seems to be a lag in that side of the industry where the writer may have no idea that they can ask for a cooler shelf space or cooler, and I feel like they're being pushed away. They're, oh no one's gonna read a fantasy-looking self-help book. So I want to see if there is a cool new thing happening, or am I just being really edgy? Like a cool self-help cover book.
You know, sometimes edgy gets it done. I think it's an interesting idea. I think, again, there's folks in this room that can speak in a much more educated way than I on that, but we're happy to do that. Yeah. We're happy to produce components with foil, with die cutting, with stamping, with any number of effects to drive people to the product.
For the publishers here, here's what people want.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can we have a crossover?
Yeah, it's an interesting idea.
Good.
Especially the early adopters, because if there's 20 self-help books, then one of them has a really, jazzy cover, that might drive the people to that cover. So maybe you're onto something.
If anyone needs an edgy, cool, interesting person, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm really not that edgy, but I have this idea and I see it,
Yeah.
but it's not there. There's a miss, there's a gap. If somebody needs to fill that gap.
Hi, you brought up Monday. I'm wondering if there's anything Lakeside or Phoenix are doing to prepare for Monday in terms of the material that you guys procure that might be sourced from China. I mean, I know that China produces more than half of the aluminum in the world, so what's going to happen to our plate costs? What's going to happen to our foil costs? What are you guys doing to prepare for that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and because I think there is going to be an effect. Now, it won't be immediate. We have, for all of our raw materials, paper. A lot of paper comes from Canada, right? Canada could be hit by tariffs. You're right, raw materials from China, from Europe. Who knows where this thing is going to go? It won't be a short effect. We have had I'd say for a number of months been preparing by understanding exactly what our inventories are, and we've done a little bit of bringing in some more inventory, so there's not an immediate effect. But no doubt there could be some pricing issues if these tariffs start to go into effect. Things could get more expensive. On the raw materials, so does that mean the overall pricing is going to go up? Yeah, but not as much as this. But if plates go up 25%, that's going to affect the price of the end product, but not the total price of the book, obviously.
Are you concerned about getting it in though? Like if we all come in, when all this work's going to come back to the U.S., will you be able to produce for
Yeah, I think supply chains are very prepared for this. I think it's more of a cost issue than a getting the product in. I think, and that's what people are going to have to figure out. I think it's an inflationary factor. Right now, it doesn't look to be a supply chain factor.
Hi, can you see me?
Yes.
Hi. I had a question about the QR codes. I've been seeing a lot of interest from international Chinese booksellers that would like to include a QR code between their K through 12 education books. Issue that we're running into is not knowing the content that the QR code leads to, and if that is the publisher's responsibility, if it's the author's responsibility to write new content, or if it is the account or the bookseller's responsibility to link it to something that has to do with their business. So I was wondering if you could shed some light on that.
Yeah, and the work we've done, and it's been a little while on QR codes, the QR code was always the responsibility, and where it linked to was the publisher was adding the QR code, and the publisher was looking to do that so that they could gather information on the end consumer, right? If you're an education publisher, you were putting that QR code so that you could skip over the professor, skip over the bookstore, skip over all the staff. So we could find out who the student was that hopefully would hit that QR code and then gather information and maybe sell directly to that student. So the publisher was very much in control of where that QR code would be. I would, like most content, as the manufacturer, we stay out of the content business. We reproduce what our customers ask us to, taking pornography and other things out, we won't do that. But other than that, if customers ask us to produce a product, we produce it. But I would be leery on producing QR codes as a publisher when you don't know where that QR code is going to lead people to.
Questions? So how did we, thank you guys so much.
Thank you for passing around. Thank you, Dave. Thank you for coming to speak to us about adult editions. Thank you for being here in our programs tonight, our first one in 2025. We really appreciate you coming here and being here and having this program.
Great. It's great to be here. Thank you.